Hey everyone, Mitch coming in with the Greater Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, Eldrazi Incursion upgrades. No matter what your budget is, whether it's a budget like mine where you play with cards that are $1 or less, or if you play with cards that are much more than that, I've got some upgrades for you to consider for your precon. So with all that said, let's jump into it. So, first up, I am going to be a little bit selfish. My apologies on this episode, but I'm doing things a little differently with this kind of an upgrade episode because with this upgrade and actually the other, upgrades, the other precons, there are exactly 2 commanders per each precon, and typically in the past that wasn't the case, so it was just like, okay, we're upgrading the actual commander of the precon, the face commander, but with this one, yeah, you've got some options. There's a lot of players on both sides of, wanting to build around Azlask or building around Ulalek. Personally, I'm a little more interested in Azlask, so I'm going to start off with that one. So my apologies. You can go ahead and skip forward to Ulalek if you want to go see those upgrades. That being said, I'm going to be mentioning some in this that obviously do apply to the other one as well. But, yeah, there's a distinction on how these work. Anyways, Azlask, the Swelling Scourge, as a reminder, whenever another colorless creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. You can pay Wooburg, creatures you control at +X until end of turn, X the number of experience counters you have. Most importantly, though, Scions and Spawns you control gain Indestructible and Annihilator 1 until end of turn. It is a ridiculous effect. Essentially, hey, your creatures are going to wipe out your opponents. That's basically what it is. You are going to say, you know what? Let's take those Eldrazi Spawns and Scions and say, hey, they're hard to deal with now being indestructible. Sure, they get larger. Who cares? What matters is essentially the Annihilator 1. So, yeah, the initial build of this precon is not just, hey, get every single Eldrazi Spawn and Scion in play and then swing and annihilate someone. But the upgraded version would be, in my opinion. This is how I would build around it. I would focus on those types of cards to ensure that I can go incredibly wide with Spawns and Scions and other cards that can technically be Spawns and Scions, and swing, and opponent is gone. And then maybe get extra combat or something like that. Swing again, that opponent's gone. Swing again, that opponent is gone. Yeah, you can do some crazy, gross things. Let's jump into the budget buys first. So I'm going to go through these first few ones quickly because we've got a lot of Spawns and Scions cards to consider. Ones that give us multiple Spawns and Scions into play. First up, Broodbirthing. If we control 1, we get 3. If we don't, we get 1. Yeah, we most likely will have 1 before we actually play this. But just paying 2 mana, we get 3 creatures again that can have Annihilator 1. That is gross. Typically, when it comes to like Annihilator 1, you got to pay at least like 7-ish mana for a creature that has that. And with this, now we're like, oh no, don't worry about that. We get 3 for 2 mana. Next up, Emrakul's Messenger, a new card. Whenever you're drawing your second card each turn, you get a 0/1 spawn. Cool. So yeah, again, this is another way to keep making, throughout the game, more and more spawns. Technically, with each trip around the table, I mean, if you have a lot of, instant speed card draw, you could make, 4 with each trip around the table. I mean, still just getting 1 with each turn you have potentially. Once you get things set up, once you get card draw going on, then yeah, you can still make a decent-sized army with that. Call the Scions, you get 2 onto the battlefield for 3 mana. Unlike the other one previously where it has like a condition, this is no condition, you're always getting 2. Early on, too, if you need it for ramp, you can utilize it for ramp as well. Eldrazi Repurposer, again, 3 mana, getting 3 Eldrazi in total, 2 of them being Eldrazi Spawns. I keep going back and forth between Spawns and Scions. They essentially serve the exact same function in this deck, but still, my apologies if I mispronounce any of those. Yeah, you are getting 1 when this is cast, and you get 1 when this dies as well. Glimpse the Impossible. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. Play those cards this turn. At the beginning of extensive, any of those cards remain exiled. Put them into your graveyard, then create a Eldrazi Spawn for each of those cards. So essentially, you can pay 3 mana, and you can impulse draw 3. If you don't use those cards, cool, you get 3 Eldrazi Spawns, which is absolutely huge. So sometimes you're just gonna be like, I don't really need those cards. I'd rather just have the 3 mana, 3 Spawns. Gross times. Gross Spasm. Speaking of gross times, being able to actually ramp while also well, temporarily ramping with an Eldrazi spawn too, but more so just maybe keeping that into play for the Annihilator. Yeah, basically a rampant growth that is one more costed to get that extra Eldrazi in play. Eyeless Watcher enters the battlefield. You get 2 Eldrazi Scions. It's pretty, straightforward on why you want this. Cosmic Predator, again, the exact same thing essentially, except you're getting spawns. Path of Annihilation enters the battlefield. You make 2 Eldrazi spawns. And then also on top of that, Eldrazi control have tap at 1 mana of any color. This is, oh my goodness gracious. This is just craziness. Essentially, hey, every single one of your creatures now is going to be mana positive. I mean, your creatures, Eldrazi spawns, you can technically sacrifice for mana right in the Scions as well, but like you don't want to do that with this commander. Typically, you want to go as wide as you can. So now you don't have to sacrifice them for mana. They can help you fix your mana, and you can cast a lot of things. On top of that, if you're casting some giant creature spells, you gain 4 life. But more importantly, again, just this being essentially a way to ramp you and also get some Eldrazi's in play. Great. Writhing Chrysalis, when you cast it, you make 2. If you sacrifice Eldrazi, this gets larger. I guess that can really come into play, but no, the important thing is you get 2 of them. Dread Drone, you are getting 2 when this enters the battlefield. Emrakul's Hatcher, you get 3 when it enters the battlefield. Spawn Gain Commander, you are getting 3 when you cast it. You can also sacrifice Eldrazi for damage if you need to. What we care about, again, is literally just going wide, getting more and more and more. So also, Broodmonder, again, ETB, make 3 of them. Rapacious one is pretty hilarious, actually. Whenever it deals counter to a player, you get that many 0/1s. So, yeah, if you get through on players, which usually can, because your opponents, well, might not have an army once you swing at them once, right? You swing at them, they get annihilated. If they don't block this, you're getting more for the next player to be annihilated with. On top of that, we do have some ways to maybe make this also into a spawner Scion so that it can get larger as well, and all of a sudden you hit even harder too. Drowner of Truth, just a free card to throw into the deck essentially, because this is an MDFC land. It can tap for either a green or a blue on the back, and just battlefield tap, that's okay. When you cast it, you get some Eldrazi spawns if you spend a colorless, which you will to do so you get 2 of them. Next up, Populate type effects obviously can help you too. Sundering Growth, restore an artifact or enchantment, populate, so get another Eldrazi spawn or Scion. Again, go wide while you are actually just doing things you normally be doing. Rootborn Defenses, protect your team, everything's got indestructible, great. On top of that, again, populate, get an extra Annihilator. Ugh, disgusting. Celestial Ufologist, here we go. This is a great repeatable one. Dump your mana into this and say, you know what? I don't like you having creatures in your graveyard. Your opponent's like, no, I've got a Reanimator deck. And you're like, I don't care. All right, goodbye, creatures in graveyards. I'm going to populate each time I do that. And all of a sudden, I'm going so wide with so many of those creatures. Growing Rains, again, at the beginning of your upkeep, you populate, so you get more and more and more of those creatures. So again, tactic number 1 with this is just go wide. Go as wide as you can with spawns and Scions, because again, it literally just takes 1 swing to take someone out most of the time with this kind of a commander. Once you're set up properly, I should say. And also, keep in mind that you can activate that commander's ability twice, or more than that even, potentially. And those Annihilator ones do stack on top of each other, so you get more than one of them. So your opponent's going to be sacrificing essentially their entire board, probably including their lands. So when you swing at them, they probably lose. And because of that, let's use some cards that make things go a little faster. Port Razor, whenever you deal counter to a player, untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, initial combat phase, you can't attack a player that's already attacked this turn. Here's the thing, again, when you swing at a player, if they don't have any blockers because you annihilated all of them, this is getting through on that player. And because of that, cool, I get an extra combat. I untap all my creatures, I swing again at the next player who's unlucky, and now all of a sudden, they're gone, and then all of a sudden the last player is gone. Getting extra combats like this can be a very good way to take things out. Scourge of the Throne, basically attacking. If you're attacking each turn with the player with the most life, I should say. If you're dethroning someone, you get an extra combat. So that's another way to do it as well. There are a decent amount of cards that you can utilize, obviously at a higher budget that it got some extra combat for you, but there are some lower budget ones as well. I mean, Response Surge is a great one. Resurgence especially, I should say. Creature control gain first strike and vigilance on a turn. After this main phase, initial combat phase, followed by initial main phase. Yeah, getting an extra combat is, again, like I said, a very good thing. Also a very good thing, kind of like I mentioned earlier, or I should say alluded to it. Mirror Entity. Pay X until end of turn. Creature control a base power of XX and gain all creature types, meaning that they're all spawns and Scions. So for whatever creatures you have in the deck that aren't spawns or Scions, like I talked about earlier, like a lot of Eldrazi miscellaneous ones that like make spawns and Scions, now all of a sudden they are spawns and Scions. And because of that, they get the benefits from your commander, and your commander can make them absolutely, well, massive with the experience counters, but who cares about that again, but indestructible and annihilating with 1. So again, you just kind of need to just throw 1 mana into this. You don't have to like pump a lot of mana into this to make your creatures huge? You can, but more importantly, just giving your creatures that type is massive. Also massive is perfect fixing with something like Prismatic Omen. Lands you control are every basic land type, in addition to other types. Again, your commander's ability is all 5 colors. This helps you perfectly fix your mana from your lands. By doing that now, all of a sudden, you can more easily activate your commander's ability once, maybe even twice in a turn for devastating effect. But now so on to the pricier picks. Again, cards that are outside of my budget but might be within yours, more than $1. Chromatic Lantern, actually getting kind of close to $1, actually. Artifact 4/3, again, helping with the perfect mana fixing. Land you control can tap for 1 mana of any color, and this also does tap for 1 mana of any color. Again, helping you utilize your commander's ability to the fullest. Ley Line of the Guild Pact, also a very good one. Basically a free card into play if it's in your opening hand. Each non-land permanent you control is all colors. Land you control are every basic land type, just like other types. Kind of interesting with that, like, devoid versus, all colors thing. But if you don't really care too much about that, cool. Yeah, just all you really care about is getting the lands to be able to tap for whatever you want. Chromatic Orrery, you may spend mana, Zormanic, and mana of any color, so perfect. Again, perfect mana fixing. On top of this just being tap for 5, which can be just tap for Wooburg, so another activation of your commander. And you can also draw a card for each color among permanents you control. You might not be doing that with Eldrazi, but, that's okay. What you care about, again, is essentially, let's just, activate the commander's ability a couple times. And speaking of activating the ability, let's double the fun, double the trouble for your opponents. Illusionist Bracers. Attach this to your commander, and all of a sudden, whenever an activated ability equipped creature is activated, if it's not a mana ability, which it's not, copy that ability to target with a copy. This doubles up the efficiency of your commander and makes it so that, oh my goodness, there is no way that your opponents are surviving this. You just attach this to your commander again, activate your commander once, all of a sudden, and again, that's Annihilator 1, stack twice. I'm just going to say Annihilator 2 to make it more simply, okay? Swing at your opponent, and they're gone, and maybe even you've got the mana to activate this twice, and all of a sudden, your commander is activated twice, this triggers twice, you get Annihilator 4 on your creatures, and there's no chance your opponents have enough things in play to not sacrifice their entire board, including their lands. Battle Mage's Bracers does the exact same thing, essentially, but you have to pay 1 mana to get that effect, which is fine. Live for an engine, pay 2, tap, and then you can copy target activated or triggered ability you control. So again, another way to do that. On top of that, this can copy in sorceries or copy permanents, so that's a lot of really good things that you can be done with this. But yeah, again, at the end of the day, just, hey, okay, instead of paying an extra 5 mana to activate my commander a second time, I can just pay 2 to copy that effect. Next up, Everything Counts. Arcane Adaptation. Kind of like Mirror Entity, but again, a permanent way to do that. ETBs, choose a creature type. Spawn or Scion, whatever you want to pick, it probably doesn't matter. Creatures you control the chosen type and disregard their types. Also, creatures on the battlefield. What matters, again, is now your commander applies to everything. That activated ability applies to every single one of your creatures. Masquerade Nexus, I love you. Wizards reprinted. Creature controller, every creature type. The same is true for all creatures. So the battlefield, basically everything's a changeling, essentially, okay? You can also pay 3 and tap to make a changeling, which is lovely. So, yeah, you can just make little Annihilator creatures, and everything else is Annihilator creatures. So again, making all those creatures that I talked about earlier that again are just like Eldrazi drones or regular Eldrazi or whatever they are, you can now essentially ensure that every single one of your creatures, including your commander, is counted when it comes to, hey, I'm swinging and taking you out. Like I mentioned earlier, extra combats obviously are very good. They got pretty expensive, the spells did, after certain commanders like Ishin came around. But yeah, Relentless Assault, 4 mana, get extra combat. Moving on, Morag, Fury of Akum. Basically, you can pump your creatures more for each time they attack, which is nice, but again, you do need to eventually take players out, right? Like with combat damage, but you kind of don't. I mean, you do just to end the game, but again, the game's basically over when you just annihilate your opponent's board, so sure, you can pump your creatures, whatever. Whenever a land is battlefield under your control, if it's your main phase, it's a combat phase after this main phase. Beginning of the combat, you get extra combats whenever lands come into play. It's also worded weirdly, so like, I can't remember how exactly it works, but you need to like play a land, I think it's on your second main phase. Whatever it is, play lands properly, and all of a sudden get extra combats, evolving wilds, fun times. Swing out, populate. That can also, of course, help, like we talked about earlier. Beginning of combat, your turn, populate with this one. On top of that, whenever a creature's token enters battlefield under control, this gets larger. This can hit for a ton, especially in a deck like this. Song of the World Soul, though, one of my favorite cards of all time. Wizards reprint it. Whenever you cast a spell, populate. You just need 1 Spawn or Scion in play, and all of a sudden, when you're casting any spell, you get an extra Spawn or Scion. You flood the board in absolutely no time, and you take out your opponents with that Annihilator. Kozilek's command. Out of nowhere, you can have a spawn army. Target player creates X01 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens with sacrifice creature at colorless. You can also scry X, draw a card, exile a creature may value X, or exile cards from graveyards. What matter is, again, you're choosing 2. You're definitely going to be basically doing Secure the Wastes, but with Scions before your turn. Spawns, I should say. I keep mixing those up. And all of a sudden, your opponent's like, oh, wait. Oh, Annihilator. I'm gone. Yeah, they're gone. Kozilek's Unsealing. Whenever you're casting creature spells with mana value 4, 5, or 6, you get 2 Scions. Cool. On top of that, if you cast a really big creature, you draw 3 cards as well. Pawn of Ulalek, whenever it or another one of your creatures dies that is non-token, you're making an Eldrazi spawn to replace them. So again, it's a great way to say, yeah, I'm going to keep my spawn army going pretty well. And from beyond, at the beginning of your upkeep, you get a 0-1, a 1-1 Eldrazi Scion. I am mixing up these Scions and spawns. My apologies. It doesn't matter. Again, the power does not matter on them. Essentially, what matters is you're getting more of them into play. Essentially, every single upkeep, you get an extra one. You can also tutor out Eldrazi's if you need to, or an Eldrazi if you need to. But again, what matters with this one is essentially, yeah, you get more and more of these. There's also the other one as well that would make, spawns too. But both of these are great, so keep that in mind. But now let's move on to the other commander, again, the Face Commander. And my apologies for those of you that wanted me to cover this one first. I personally am a little more excited about the other one, and I had a little more cards that I wanted to mention with that one, so I went that one first. So my apologies, please forgive me. Anyways, Ulalek, Fuse Atrocity, 2/5 Eldrazi for 5 mana with really weird color combination. Devoid, whenever you're casting an Eldrazi spawn, you can pay 2 colors. If you do, copy all spells you control, then copy other activated abilities you control as well. You may choose your targets for the copies. Basically, double up your Eldrazi here, there, and everywhere, and all their effects. Pretty gross, pretty effective. This one, I would say, again, the other one is, depending on how you're building it, and the way that I would build it, again, is just go wide with all the Eldrazi spawns and Scions and annihilate your opponents. That is definitely a different build than this one. This is more like, hey, big, spicy Eldrazi effects. What's not to love about that? Let's jump into the budget buys. Let's start things off with a low-to-the-ground Eldrazi effect that you're going to want. Herald of Kozilek. Very simple, very effective. 2/4 color spells you cast cost once to cast. You just double this up, and all of a sudden you have 2 of them in play, which is lovely because now you're reducing the cost of your Eldrazi further. And again, in Eldrazi tribal deck, you're going to be saving a lot of mana. Zul'Dok, Void Gorger. Color spells you cast from your hand with mana value 7 or greater have Cascade. Oh, gross. So yeah, getting that a lot throughout the game can be quite deadly. Getting a lot of free value coming into play. Lovely. Again, Cascade. That's just, oh, goodness gracious. That's just 2 free cards every single time. Gross. Plus with all these triggers doubling. Oh my goodness. All right, Desolation Twin. Speaking of triggers doubling, a 10/10 Eldrazi for 10 mana. Whenever you're casting a spell, you make a 10/10. What's better than 1 10/10? 2 10/10s. And what's better than that? Well, like 4, because you're copying this with your commander as well. So, yeah, you can flood the board with 40 power in absolutely no time. Technically speaking, Changelings. Shapeshifters with Changeling. It's always confusing. It's like, they're just Changelings, right? They are Eldrazi, as well as every other creature type too, but they are Eldrazi. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile a creature card from your graveyard. If you do, exile target artifact or enchantment opponent controls. Just a good utility Eldrazi to have in your deck as well. Torian Mauler. Yeah, this is Eldrazi and grow quite large throughout the game. Whenever opponent casts a spell, you get a counter on it. Kind of like a Mana Gorger Hydra, but again, it's a Changeling. It counts as every creature type, including Eldrazi. Get 2 of them into play, and your opponent's like, oh gosh, we're growing the army quite quickly. No. Mana storage. Let's talk about Horizon Stone. If you would lose unspent mana, that mana becomes colorless instead. So you can store up mana. Again, you're going to be pretty mana hungry with this deck because you want to play some pretty big things, and you also want to be able to pay that 2 mana to copy. So, yeah, store up a bunch of colorless mana, especially for that copying effect. And of course, a lot of your Eldrazi are, well, either generic mana or have color symbols in them too, so keep that in mind. Yeah, basically, mana storage can really help you out throughout the game, especially in a mana-hungry deck like this one. Next up, Unsettled Mariner. Again, Changelings are Eldrazi, and everything else as well. A 2/2 Shapeshifter Changeling. Whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell and ability opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless the controller pays 1. This is basically Ward 1 before Ward existed. Now, all of a sudden, it's Ward 2. So, yeah, you have basically Ward 2 for everything, again, on 2 Eldrazi. So, there you go. Void Winnower. Now, this one, it's interesting because, like, you don't get, like, an extra trigger off of this one when you copy it. But, hey, what's you're not going to complain about having 2 11/9s in play that have this disgusting text on them. Your opponents can't cast spells with even mana values. Your opponents can't block creatures with even mana values. Having 2 of those in play is redundant, but still doesn't matter. They're both big threats, number 1. Number 2, it's also twice as hard to deal with. I mean, unless there's a Wrath. But yeah, someone just being like, okay, Swords of Plowshare's that one. Oh, the other one's still there. Oh no, well, I don't have any other removal that isn't even mana value, so I'm in trouble. Yeah, basically double shutting your opponents down. It's a very mean card. Flare of Loyalties. Whoever casts a spell, gain control target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature until end of turn. Has base power on is 10/10, gains trample, Annihilator 2 in haste. This also has Annihilator 2, and it's a 10/10 trampler. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Being able to double up that in its effect, annihilating your opponents to the ground, just decimating everything they have. When you're doing that, if that betrays, of course, if you got a lot of Annihilator triggers, you're gonna want this in your deck. If you've got, it's a lot cheaper now, $6.57. 11/11 Eldrazi with Annihilator 2. Whenever opponent sacrifice a non-token permanent, you steal it. It is yours. So again, it works with its own Annihilator and also your other Annihilators as well. Determinate Iteration. I love this populate effect. Very good, again, when it comes to this one more so than the other commander, because the other commander is like, okay, I want sustained for the most part, populate. I want to keep those creatures around and go wide. With this commander, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I've just got giant Eldrazi token copies. Let's make a token copy, even if it's temporary. I still get that effect. I still get that amazing attack. Lovely. At the beginning of combat, your turn, populate. The token created this way gains haste. Sacrifice be a next end step. Yeah, it can be quite effective, very effective throughout the game for you. I already mentioned this one. Actually, this is an interesting crossover because I thought I deleted this, but I didn't. Cosmic Sunsealing. You're going to want this, obviously. Urza's Incubator. Yeah, even the reprint, still pretty expensive at $10. Enters the battlefield, just a creature type. Creature spells that you chosen type cost 2 less to cast. So being able to reduce the cost of your Eldrazi obviously can be huge. Vidalcan Ori. Oh my goodness. So this one, obviously, if you are casting things and then responding to casting things, again, you can play things at instant speed. So essentially, hey, yeah, I play this, I play this, I play this, and then I activate my commander, which copies all my spells and also all the other things as well. So being able to play multiple things at the same time, again, instant speed Eldrazi, that can be absolutely huge. So any other things that also let you play instant speed, might want to consider that as well. Echoes of Eternity. Okay. Hey, you know what's good? Doubling up things like your commander does, but you also can double things up with this too. If a triggered ability of a colorless spell you control or another colorless permanent you control triggers, that ability triggers the whole time. On top of that, whenever you're casting a colorless spell, copy it, choose targets to the copy. You double up the double ups of the double up of the double ups. So yes, this is a very good card in this deck. But now this episode is coming to a close. Let me know what your thoughts are on these upgrades. What upgrades did I not mention that you would be considering for your Precon deck? Which of these 2 commanders is your favorite? Which one of these would you want to build around, essentially? So yeah, let me know in the comments below. If you're interested in these cards, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.